This is by far the least excited I've been for a live show of the season. That was brutal. You're locked on.
You are Locked On UConn, your daily podcast on the UConn Huskies. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thanks for making Locked On UConn your first listen every day. We are free and available wherever you get your podcasts, on YouTube, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Before we dive into today's show, I want to take a moment to say how thankful we are for all of you. We appreciate all of your support. Proud to say we're the only daily podcast covering the UConn men and women's basketball, the hoops capital of the world, and we're thrilled to bring you that coverage. To show that gratitude, we're giving back to Husky Ticket Project, donating 10% of our revenue, helping send kids to UConn games. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new FanDuel customers get $150 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. Well, if you're going to be the two-time defending national champions and pump your chest out and excited about different games, and, you know, really kind of put on a show that that everyone's going to come accustomed to, you can't run and hide from the failures and the frustrations. And that was just an ugly display. UConn gets essentially run off the floor by St. John's in a brutal loss. They looked completely outmatched physically, struggling to hit shots early. There was like a good 5 or 6 minute stretch in the second half that cut the lead to 9. And they had a chance to, in basically a microcosm of this game and quite possibly the season, you're going good. You're on a 21-8 run. I think it was 62-53 at that time. They run kind of almost a give and go where Alex does a backdoor cut. And as Dan Meehan, who's backstage, will tell you, when you're shorter, everything's tougher, right? So Haas is the 6'2" guard, and he throws a pass that's just too high for Alex to handle. I think that's a taller Tristan Newton. That's obviously a pass in the money. And now the lead is cut to 7. And then who knows? Maybe there's a different outcome. Probably not, though. The point is, they looked awful, except for the very first parts of the game where it was like 22-20. First part of the first 8 minutes of the first half, and then like a 6 minute stretch in the second half. Outside of that, they got dominated. They failed to get on the boards like they did last time. Turnovers are still a concern. I guess the one lone bright spot is Alex kind of got out of his shooting slump. He led the way with 17 points, but it clearly wasn't enough. So what's wrong? Let's talk about it. Where does UConn go from here? The consistency has been the issue all year, but there's a deeper reason, and I'm going to talk about that, and I'm sure Dan and others will on the show. So let's bring them into the program. Let's get it all squared away here. What's up, my guy? How we doing?
Yeah, you summed it up pretty good. This was just a good old-fashioned ass-kicking. UConn was outmatched in this one in every facet of the game. You can go look at the box score. UConn was held sub 40% from the field. They shoot 6 of 23 from 3. And St. John's shoots 47 from the field and 8 of 19 from 3.
It's the best they've shot all year.
Yeah, if that's
from three.
That's a team that is like bottom 50 in the country shooting from 3. If they're hitting 40% from 3, good luck, because they are just incredibly, incredibly tough defensively. All credit in the world to their coach, the philosophy that they have prepared this team to bring in every game. They're long, they're tough, they're relentless. Zubi Ejiofor's motor just does not stop. He's like Terrace Reed, but plays 35 minutes a game. It just doesn't stop. Really tough team. Their guards just have so much size. They can get to their spots pretty much anytime they want. And when they do, they can rise up over their defender and pretty much get off any shot that they want. That was on display today. UConn, for 12 games in a row now, has failed to score 80 points in a game in non-overtime games. For a team that shoots 50% from the field in the beginning of the season, not so much anymore. They've cooled off offensively, but UConn still runs really good offense. They're struggling right now to score points.
Yeah, I will say this because, the chat's kind of going off, and this isn't nothing negative about the chat. I think I want to talk about St. John's.
Yep.
St. John's is a really good team. Dan said this in the press conference. I think everyone kind of believes this. They're tough. They remind you of Houston in the respect that they're not a good scoring team, but when they do score, they're scary. Like that, what we saw today. Hold on. What we saw today is is kind of vintage. Not that Houston's won national championships, they haven't, and that's been the issue. Is like they eventually run into a team that can play defense like them, but also can put the ball in the hole. If St. John's can bottle this performance up and put this kind of on the shelf somewhere and be a 40% three-point shooting team, 35% three-point shooting team in the tournament, now we're talking about a Final Four contender, potential national championship contending team. If they can't do that, I want to say it's impossible because Pitino's done it twice at Louisville. It's very difficult for a team to win a national championship if you shoot sub 30% from three, and they're 29%. Maybe that gets them close to 30%. This performance, but that's the biggest thing is if they fight and claw, but also, and this is and I'm not gonna, I swear to God, I'm not gonna talk about officiating. I know people get on my case for that, but when the whistle is in your favor and you like to grab and you like to hold, if you don't get that whistle in the NCAA tournament and you're not shooting well and the other team shoots well, you're going to lose. So it's kind of like a push and pull type thing. What will happen in the NCAA tournament if all of a sudden Kadari Richmond picks up 4 fouls in a matter of 10 minutes because he's constantly hacking and grabbing? If they get away with it, congrats, awesome. But if you don't, then what's the consistency factor of that?
Yeah, there were a couple calls today. The Liam drive where he puts the elbow into the kid's face. He's bleeding all over the court. A no call there, but UConn committed less fouls than St. John's today.
Yep.
22-20. So that's not the complaint today. It wouldn't have, even if UConn got a few more calls, it wouldn't have mattered.
Oh, I don't agree with that.
They got beat up and down the court, 94 feet for 40 minutes straight. They were the lesser team. They were outclassed today. Something I want to speak to because it's a great point and a great comparison from St. John's to Houston. St. John's, they can always turn to their defense. This is the second-rated defensive rated team in KenPom in the nation. They'll probably be first after today. That was debilitating. UConn hasn't had a game like that in like 2.5 years. The Creighton game at Creighton 2 years ago is probably the one that I would point to, but something that speaks to the philosophy and just the basketball genius that is Rick Pitino. I've been watching that Red Storm Rising featured that they're doing for the team on Vice, and you really start to get a behind the scenes look at how he thinks and how he approaches the game. They highlighted he was one of the first guys ever in college basketball in the 80s with the Providence team to adopt the 3-point line and how to think differently. He knows this team doesn't shoot well. This St. John's team is 60th in the country in tempo. It's not necessarily that they play lightning quick like some of the teams in the SEC, like Alabama and Kentucky, but they just get to work early in the shot clock. And I think that's by design because Pitino knows that they're not a high efficiency shooting team. They take 66 shots per game. That's the third most in the country. But more importantly, it's their shot differential. They take 8 more shots per game than their opponent, which is top 5 in the country.
Yep.
That happened again today. And it's like when they're playing this heads up, just physical defense, they're bigger than you. They don't stop. When they're getting stops on the defensive end, but they're also coming down the court and playing fast, getting into their sets and getting a shot off within the first 15 seconds of a shot clock, and it's going in, that's a Final Four recipe. So credit to Rick Pitino, not only to just the grit that he's instilled into this roster and the ferociousness that they bring to every game, the basketball philosophy that they are playing with seems to be like working for this team. That's a dangerous combo, man. So like when you can play defense like that and put it in the hole, that's recipe for a Final Four squad. It was all on display today. So credit where due, man. That's a really tough team.
Yeah, and also like this team, Jay Rosa just said that they average like 60-something points a game on offense, maybe a little bit more. I'd have to look
No, it's more than that. They're leading the Big East in scoring per game.
Mid 70s, like they're not lighting it up. They're
78 a game, and they only allow 65.
Right.
They
so
put
like
it in the hole.
So then because they're very efficient from 2, but if you add they add a dimension of the 3-point, then we're talking, man, this team is really kind of got something going. Hey, real quick, I have 2 ads to run, so I'm gonna take a quick break, and then we're gonna come back and talk about some more stuff. I think a big part of what we want to talk about today is not just how great St. John's was, but you can see the glaring issues in terms of the roster construction of this team and why it limits what Dan Hurley and this team thought they were going to have this year and what they currently have. So take a quick break. When we come back, we will talk about that. All right, let me get this ad going. It's a new ad. Man, there's not even an overlay for it. So guess what? We're just going to run PrizePicks. All right. PrizePicks, one of my favorites. March basketball is here, and there's no better way to get in on the action than with PrizePicks, the best place for daily fantasy sports. With PrizePicks, you pick more or less, basically an over-under on at least 2 players and their projections. If you're right, you can win up to 1,000 times your cash. It's fast, easy, and keeps every game exciting. Building lineups this week, you can look at Jason Tatum, built more than 29 points. Luka Doncic, more than 5+ rebounds, whatever it is. Just pick something quick and easy. Boom, fast payouts. No waiting around. You get your money. There's a Taco Tuesday deal. Even offers weekly promos like, the Taco Tuesday, where you get discounted player projections for even more value. Download the app today. Use the code LOCKEDONCollege to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. That's code LOCKEDONCollege for $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. PrizePicks. Run your game. All right, we got Dan Meehan back on the program. I'm going to throw the link in the chat. I always want to do that if after the first segment. Sometimes we go a little longer on that first segment. But you know what? I wanted to be efficient today. I wonder why, because I honestly I love talking UConn hoops, but there's nothing that makes me more pissed off than when we play like just crap. And then we have to be on here and talk about it. I'll just be honest.
It could be worse. You could have traveled all the way to New York City, spent hundreds, sat on the train, got a little buzz going, and then just get bludgeoned by the end of the first half and knowing you're going to have a rough ride back on the train to New Haven and then have to drive home. So it could always be worse.
Totally fair. Or you could be like our buddies from what's the name of that company that has a 68? Not yours, another company. They're like doing a live show afterwards, and Rob Douster was just like, I'm so excited for this at halftime. I was just like, dude, I am not happy. I am not excited about our live show. So I don't care. I don't even care if we were doing it on center court of Madison Square Garden right now. I'd have the biggest sourpuss on my face talking about this game.
Yeah, the feeling after this one, it's not necessarily just disappointment because you lost a basketball game. You lost to a team that has your number now. Rick Pitino sweeps the season series against Dan Hurley. In his second season at St. John's, has really seemed to put all the pieces in the right places, and the basketball philosophy is on point. Like, he's getting absolute most out of what his roster is, and you've lost 2 games in a row to that team, both at home and away. And it's just UConn doesn't seem to. We know they have flaws, but they just don't seem to have an answer for that team. Maybe they see them in the Big East tournament. They won't see them. Likely won't see them in the national tournament if they make it. But we've got flaws, and they were all on display today. That's a tough one.
Let me. I'm going to read this to you guys, and then we'll react to it. And then we have Bernie on here, getting ready to come in. So this was a tweet by @StoresBoston. So if you don't follow him, give him a follow. I think he's spot on. This roster was built for Ross, Stort, Sampson, and Mahaney to all take big steps forward in their game, and all have been awful. I don't know if I would go that far, but they've been bad, except a small step for Jalen Stort. That combined with whatever is going on with Alex, this is before he shot better in the second half, has just made this season a major disappointment. And Alex has struggled up until that point. And then I expounded on this. I thought that was a perfect tweet because St. John's was clearly the better team. Got to give them credit. UConn is ultimately the roster construction and some of the big gambles that they had in that with a big portal miss with some untimely injuries. And they're a top 30 to 25 team, 8 to 10 seed. I think they're capable of going on runs, as we've been able to see that with the Evan Maya stuff. And they're also capable of going on these bad droughts. So, again, officials didn't cost them the game today, but have been wildly inconsistent all year. That was my continuation of that tweet from Stores Boston. But I want to get into the roster construction because those gambles. I don't know if you remember this, Dan, but Hurley actually said in a pregame availability that early or preseason availability, talking about Samson Johnson. And I know Samson's had his ups and downs all year, but what they had planned for him this year, I don't remember if anyone even remembers this, but they wanted to use him as almost like an Oso Iguodaro from Marquette and use him as kind of like a point center, the way that Amari Williams does for Kentucky, where they essentially can back him down and he has decent handle. That never came to fruition. And I don't know if that's because he wasn't capable or the other pieces didn't fit, whether it was no Jay Ross making the big leap, no Jalen Stewart being exactly what they thought he was, Liam's injury, all of that. But even when they played like some of their bye games, it just never came to fruition. So when the season is over, if I ever do get a chance to, whether it's off-season availability or just having a conversation with Dan, I really do want to find out like where some of the nuanced stuff happened, because we could all be geniuses and say Aiden Mahaney didn't work out, right? Liam's injury caused them major strife. They still have, with the exception of this game, they lost 5 games by a total of 16 points coming into this after Maui coming into this game. So this is the only game where you can say in the Dayton game where they just got their doors blown off.
Yep.
So it's really kind of been teetering on, could have been a fantastic year or could have been a even worse year, which is even crazier, right?
It absolutely could have been worse. And,
without a doubt. This team could easily be 500. Easily.
No question. And that's, people can go look at the roster construction and say it's a failure in the way that this team was comprised and the pieces don't fit. Guys haven't lived up to their billing. All that is true, but I promise you, if this coaching staff weren't the coaching staff, it would look a whole lot worse and we'd be complaining even more. It's a slippery slope when you win back-to-back, even just one championship, never mind 2 in a row, in the NIL, in the portal era. UConn was early on all of that stuff. They embraced it earlier than anybody else, and you're starting to see other teams like Auburn and other teams in the top 10, 15 that have like literally, and St. John's, the team we played today, are not even recruiting in high school anymore. Auburn, their average age is like older than the Oklahoma City Thunder. No joke. They're all 22, 23, and 24-year-olds, grown men. That is tough to beat. UConn was early on all of those things. They lose a wealth of talent to the NBA draft and the G League, lose 4 guys, like all-time program leading guys after last season. It was going to be a tough team to rebuild regardless if you won 2 national championships or not. They had serious holes coming into this year. Samson Johnson is their starting center. He's the 6th leading rebounder on the team. His physicality and fouling has always been an issue. He's plugged the hole with the fouling stuff. Like, that's gone away. We haven't talked about that since the beginning of the season. So credit to him, but guy's averaging 3.1 rebounds a game. He's our starting center. That's a massive, massive hole. And it's not attributed to the roster construction or lack thereof. Sometimes you just got to work with what you got. They missed on Mahaney. It's clear now. Like, that's a miss in the portal. That's fine. It's going to happen.
I mean,
it's going to happen.
Think about it. Think about what they think about today. I asked Michael Cohen on our show on Friday about, will they skip over Aiden and go right to Ahmad? And they did.
And they did
today.
Yep.
And I
thought he played pretty well. He looked good.
Played fine.
He just looks a little different with the ball in his hands. He got to the hoop. He missed both free throws, but that could be due to Russ because he hasn't been playing a ton. But the ball just looks different in his hands than it does in Hassan's or Aiden's. So I'm fine to keep going with that. See what we can unlock.
Him out there, dude. Like, I'm sorry. Like, he's not going anywhere. Listen, the people who are also talking about how they're going to lose all these players. Okay, like if they go, they go. Like who? I listen. I root.
Season's not over yet, by the way. So let's.
By the way, I also root for the team. Like,
this is punt all that portal stuff to the end of the season when the season's actually over. Please.
I don't understand why people do that. Like, but at the same time, if you really want to talk about it, like in a tiny little way, because I'm not going to give it that much energy. If you're really thinking about who's going to leave, who cares? Like, this isn't 1994 anymore, guys. If someone transfers, you can plug and play other players. Because I can guarantee you, if Dan Hurley puts out I'm joking around, but if he puts an ad in the paper and says, hey, would you want to come play for a 2-time national champion who basically had to piece together a roster because we had hurt guys and guys who we kind of missed on, I think he'll have some pretty good opportunities in the portal this year. It's going to be the biggest portal of its existence ever. There's going to be more talent in this portal than there ever has been ever. So there will be guys.
I want to speak to the portal because I despise the fact that it's become more of a conversation with people on the internet chirping, I hope this guy leaves. Why did we give him the bag with NIL?
Right.
Like never before in the history of college basketball, we can say now. But NIL and the portal has been around for 3, 4, 5 seasons. UConn's coming off back-to-back national championships, right? How many times back in the late 90s, early 2000s, mid 2000s did UConn or every school bring in a recruit from high school that just didn't pan out? Like like Harrelson, supposed to be the next Rashad Anderson, three-point shooter. Yeah. Hazelton, excuse me. It's just a total dud. Like now in the portal, when you bring in a guy, you're paying him. That's a professional sports contract. Like that's what it is. When that guy doesn't hit, all the lights are shining on that guy and on the team now, way more than they used to. Like Hazelton, I hate to draw a circle around his name and put him on display of all the UConn recruits that didn't pan out. But like I can go down the list on Basketball Reference and go find you 10, 15, 20 guys that didn't pan out. We never talked about them after that. It was just like, oh yeah, it didn't work out. Now in the transfer portal, it's like all lights are on you. Ben Stiller when the scuba guy kicks him. Yeah,
here Polly.
So it's like, but you're coming off back-to-back national championships. The portal's been around 3 years, like you said. To this point, the transfer portal has been a weapon for UConn. It hasn't been a detriment. Now it's almost like, oh, did we bring in the wrong guy? Like, do we need to talk about that guy going elsewhere? How do the NIL payments work? Has he already been paid for 2 years? We don't know how that stuff works. It's going to be a very interesting offseason. Very interesting.
The other thing too is and I'm going to quote Dan Hurley on this because I get to go on these media availabilities when he says, in the world we live in, when Liam has a game where he scores 38 and then 25 at the Garden, he's the greatest player in the world. But when he has a dud like he had today, he's all of a sudden he should stay and he's not a lottery pick. I can't stand that narrative. Like the body of work of Liam McNeely, who is probably, as Dan said, he is, and I agree with this, has the most pressure of any freshman in the country that he doesn't play well, his team loses. Well, guess what? He didn't play well today, and we lost. And it wasn't all on him. But look, it's not always. That's what you get when you have one guy that you need to have, the game like he had against Creighton, and he doesn't have it, then you're going to struggle. He's still going pro, guys. Like he's not coming back. I promise you.
Yeah, he had a tough game. Plays 35 minutes, 2 of 13 from the field, 4 turnovers. Caraban finds his stroke from 3 of 6, but also gives them all back with 6 turnovers. So again, all the holes that UConn has had to plug and have done a really good job of doing so thus far just got brought to light today against a better team. Like that's Rick Pitino is too smart. He knows what this team's holes are, and he exploited all of them today.
All right, Bernie.
I'm going to use an example of the movie Jaws, about today's game. UConn was the victim in the water, and St. John's was the shark, and it smelled blood, and it was UConn's blood, and UConn went down, and the shark ate it. That's kind of the example of what happened today. It was not a good day.
We're going to need a bigger boat, Bernie.
You be a bigger boat? I mean, how big a boat? Titanic's already sunk underwater. I mean, what do you want me to do about that? There's something I can do. The Love Boat, maybe? I don't know. Maybe that would work. But the thing is, and this is something you're talking about the transfer portal and everything else like that. The thing is, after the season's over with and all the games are over with and everything else, and the transfer portal opens up, you look at all these players, you look at how they are and everything else, that you're looking at the season statistics and everything, and you think, okay, this would be a perfect fit for the team. And you bring them in, you look at them, and you say, okay, this would be a good fit for our team. You can't predict how they're going to play just by what they've done the previous season. That is the thing that I think a lot of teams this year, not just UConn, like North Carolina, like Kansas. Remember Timberlake? Timberlake was seen as this great scorer when he played at Townsend. He goes to Kansas. He spends the rest of his life spends the rest of the year on the bench for Kansas.
Yeah.
So when we talk about, Mahaney's this, Mahaney's that, yeah, he's not had a great year. He doesn't really understand the dynamics of the team. But at the same time, when he got brought in, he got looked at because of what he did at St. Mary's the previous season. And when he came to this team, this is a completely different experience than it was at St. Mary's. At St. Mary's, they play a much more controlled offense. Here at UConn, it's very different. It's extremely different. So Mahaney's went right from the get-go. If Mahaney didn't get it right from the get-go, he was never going to get it to begin with anyway. And he's not.
And not to bag on Aiden any further, but St. Mary's is 18th in KenPom and number 9 team defensively in the country.
Yeah, they beat Gonzaga. They beat Gonzaga yesterday.
We've become very, very poor. No, so yeah.
Yeah, but I think what?
No, I was going to say, what? Hey, take it easy. Don't give me attitude. I'm going to kick you off the stream. No, I'm kidding. No, but what I was going to say was with the Nick Timberlake stuff, sometimes you also have to get lucky because we wanted him and he went to Kansas. And guess who came in through the back door? Cam Spencer. So as much as we kind of fawn over the genius that is Dan Hurley, and I think he would, if you gave him true serum, he would tell you that they completely got lucky with losing out on Timberlake and then getting a guy like Cam. Maybe if when the season's over, because the more I watch Kobe Bryant at Kentucky, the more I do feel like some of the comments early were warranted. And that's a tough pill for me to swallow because I do know what they tried to do with Aiden, and I think that the best intentions were there. But I also don't think that everything is, hindsight's 2020, right?
UConn's not winning a national championship if Kobe Bryant is on this team. If we were going to miss in the portal, I'm glad it's this year.
Because Kobe is horrible. Kobe Bryant is horrible. I mean, Kentucky.
He's not horrible.
He's not horrible.
But Kentucky can't play defense. I mean, they gave up another 90 points over Alabama. I mean, if you can't,
if Dan is clamoring for guys who can that say F it and are going to go out on their shield, then he needed to bring in Kobe Bryant. You know what I'm saying? Like that's my point.
Yeah.
Like, that guy doesn't give a rip, and he's going to shoot even though he may not have the best night. He's going to get you points. Like so. They lost that production when they decided that Aiden was the guy. And that's the thing is we just, that is what it is.
Yeah. But let me ask you this. If there was a player out there right now who you hope would go into the transfer portal that UConn might be interested in, who would it be and why?
Too early to tell.
I have no freaking clue, dude. I'm not focused on any of that. Like,
I was thinking, the reason why St. John's is as complete as they are right now this year was when they got Kadari Richmond from Seton Hall. As soon as they placed him into that team, it just like that team dynamic changed because now they had that additional scorer. And he has been sort of like, he is the leader of that team, even though he doesn't really say very much and doesn't speak very loud. He is the one who sort of is a catalyst for all their offenses because listen, if Kadari Richmond was still in Seton Hall, I don't think St. John's would be at this point as good as they are because when he was at Seton Hall, I think Shaheen Holloway would love to have Kadari Richmond back this year. He would love to have him back. But now Kadari is at St. John's. I mean, St. John's is 15-2, 25-3, having one of their best years ever. They're more than likely, if they continue to go, probably win the outright Big East championship this year for the first time since 1980 something. This is like a huge step for him. So in this case, St. John's did exactly a UConn, even though I don't want to compare UConn's team last year to this year, St. John's team, but they did. They got that one player they needed. And now look where they are right now. Do I think they're going to going to the Final Four? Do I think they're going to win a national championship? It depends. Depends on the matchups and who they face in the first round, who they face after that. But St. John's, and I said St. John's is good, real good. But they couldn't make a free throw for the life of them. And what happened after that? They started making free throws. They started making threes. It's like kill or be killed when it comes to St. John's. Well, Georgetown's on Tuesday. at the Excel. And Mark, I'd like to say before you let me go, I appreciate you giving me that ticket. I had a lot of fun. It was the best experience I ever had in my entire life. It's a moment I will never, ever forget. It's one of the, listen, I've had not had very, very happy memories in my life, but going to that game on Tuesday night was like the best moment of my life. So I appreciate you for doing that for me. Sorry, gang. But yeah, thank you so much for doing it for me. I really do appreciate that because I don't think anybody would have done that for me, and you did. So,
Bernie,
man, have a good rest of your Sunday.
Yeah. Wait, me hand.
Love you, pal.
We got you. Love you. That's Bernie. Listen, where's that? I can get that thing off the screen. I'm glad Bernie got to go to the game. That was a hell of a game to go to, coming back hard down the stretch against Villanova. But that kind of leads into this team just essentially, I don't know, man. There's just something about what did you say last time, Dan? Like that Hurley kind of feels like there's just something about it that you feel like he's sick of this team. And I get. I
didn't say that he was sick of the team. I think he's incredibly honest with what they have and what they don't have.
I think
who would know that better? Who would know what you need better than a two-time defending national championship coach that's been doing this for his entire life? Like, he's not going to mince words. He's done doing that. He seemed to be done doing that about halfway through the season. Like, this team, he needs dogs. He wants to see a locker room fight just to kind of like show me something that you give a rip. But it's a double-edged sword in that regard because it's easy to look like you don't give a rip when you're not playing well, or if you're playing hard, but maybe you're just not good enough. And that seems to be the case here. So it's like it's championship or bust every single year at this school. Okay?
Yeah.
When they don't win, coming off a tumultuous off season with portal acquisitions that missed, Dan Hurley potentially going to the Lakers. Like, it was a lot going on this offseason. Add all that, throw it all into a blender, and then 9 losses. It's not going to be as pretty as it was the last 2 years. So it is what it is.
I have to comment to someone in the chat here talking about benching DR and go to the bigger lineup. If we did that against St. John's today, we would have had 47 turnovers.
Yeah.
Without Hassan, and I know Hassan forced the issue a little bit today, but he still had 4.7 rebounds, 6 assists.
The team is what it is. The best guys are on the court and they're playing. We've tried to go to the bench, and it doesn't work. There's nothing there.
There's just not. There's
no production off the bench.
There's no answers.
Correct.
There's stopgaps. Like, you can put in Ahmad for a little bit to kind of give Haas a blow. You can put in Jalen Stewart a little bit to give Liam a blow. I think Terrace is going to start supplanting Sampson for a lot more minutes because clearly he did that today with they played the same amount of minutes, but he came out in the second half and started. Like, so there's just
you saw what happened last game when they played effing Villanova.
Yeah.
Aiden Mahaney was a -6 on the box score in 2 minutes.
Yeah.
They can't go to the bench for an extended period of time. There's just too much bleeding.
No, without a doubt. I'm going to come in because we're going to take one more break and then close out the show because it's Sunday and this game sucked and I don't want to talk about it for much longer. So I'm going to take a quick break and then we'll come back. And we're back on Locked On UConn. All right. I'm going to put the link in the chat one more time. If anyone wants to come in, it's last call. Last call for any of your bitches. Not that your bitches. I mean, any bitch fests that you would like to put out there. Yeah, Diana's spot on. Like, he's been trying to reset the fan expectations pretty much
since the scrimmage in August.
Well, and then even after
he said after that day, he was like, all the tweets and all the reporters that got to go to that scrimmage back on campus in August. He said it's not going to look like it has the last 2 years. Nothing more could have been more true than that statement.
Yeah. I think Dan also realizes because some of the things that he's said recently is kind of not that it's like been thrown in his face, but he's talked about like how he, the scrutiny that he's faced and like I think that has kind of weighed on the team. Joe D'Ambrosio made a great point. he said he thought that Dan made a mistake by pumping all the three-peat stuff early, and that, without really kind of knowing what your team was.
Sure.
If you come into this year and you crush everyone in Maui, and then you come out and you destroy all of your bye games, and you're 8-0 going into, forget what game that was, Baylor, right? Then I think that talk would have been warranted. And listen, I love it. I love when people have the balls to come out and say we're going for something historic and not run from it. But I don't think he realized how fragile this team was up here, and how fragile this team really was from a physical standpoint. Like they don't have anybody that's like he said, they don't have anybody that wants all the smoke. Like he says that Liam wants it,
if
for the
Cam
most part,
Spencer's brain and basketball maturation was instilled into every single person on this roster, it still wouldn't be enough. They're just not the same basketball players as the last couple of years. So if there's one knock on Hurley's coaching or whatever you want to call it this season, that's probably it. He's getting the most out of this roster and the personnel on the court as any coach in the country would. There's no other answers. Like, you can't even go to the bench for 10 minutes first for some of these guys, or the game just you lose the game. We saw it last game against a Villanova team. They don't have the horses, and that's evident now. So yeah, you can knock them in that regard, pumping all the three-peat stuff. But who wouldn't? Who wouldn't come into this season getting excited about doing something historical? So,
no, I agree. So I don't think anyone wants to come on. You got shocker, right? Everyone's got, listen, and I'm not saying this to like challenge anyone, but like everyone's got their own thoughts in the chat. I don't understand why people don't want to come on. Like Bernie doesn't come on and put his camera on. Just come on and talk like it's the radio. Turn your camera off. I won't put you right on. You can get settled in.
You shouldn't have called the chat bitches, Mark.
I didn't call them bitches. I said you can come in and bitch. But I mean, some of them are. Oh, let's just be honest, right?
Come on in.
I definitely can be a bitch from time to time. Fair. So play fair. Come on in. Caraban has the eligibility next year. He does, but guys, he's going pro. Like, I would be shocked. I think it's 50-50 based off of this year. But, also, like, I think sometimes you can only do so much at a spot. And so I think he wants to go to the next level and figure it out.
And that's not something that NBA scouts and talent evaluators hold against a college kid like they used to.
Right.
Sometimes it's like in these pre-draft camps, like, players learn things in those like 3, 4, 5 weeks that they never even learned in college, even after playing 2-3 years. Like,
bro, I don't mean to cut you off, but I've had people ask me this before, like offline, that they're like, Caravan should go portaling. Like, I just like, guys, like, who are you and why do you think that is a realistic possibility?
Alex Caraban, up until 2 days ago on Bleacher Report and NBADraft.net, is still a fringe second round pick. So his draft stock is the same as it was last year. Yeah, it hasn't really taken a big hit. So to all the people that think Alex Caraban is struggling, he's not what he was the last few years. I think he's taken a step back. He's not playing well. He's not shooting the ball well. Maybe something's wrong with his shot. I don't know. His draft stock is still the same as it was the last year. If you go on to NBADraft.net, go look at the back half of the second round and tell me if, one, every single one of those players' names, and two, if you think they're better than Alex Caraban.
It's true.
Bronny James was the 55th overall pick last year. You think he's more fit for the NBA game than 6'8" Alex Caraban? Give me a break,
bro. There's so many, and listen, that's okay. Like, being a fan is, you can be as uninformed or as informed as possible. There's almost too much information out there for you to consume. But to come on a stream and ask guys who do this every day, should Alex Caraban go portaling, or he should, he should be gone. Like, I don't think you realize like how good he actually is. Yeah, no. And this is the biggest culprit. I'm going to call this person out who would never come on the stream, by the way. Caraban could be someone else's Cam Spencer. I don't think that's a crazy notion. You're insane. Like, he's not leaving to go play for another college. Like, Cam
Spencer played at Rutgers and Loyola before he came to UConn and became something. You didn't even know that guy's name before he came to UConn. Stop it.
And
You think
Caraban is an
that
NBA
Alex
rotation
Caraban,
player.
yeah,
My
Alex
God.
Caraban, go to Duke and see if John Shire can unlock something in your game that hasn't been found at UConn yet. Stop it.
All right, I'm done for the day. You guys, this is where the silly season happens, and then I get guys on my stream that end up stalking me on Instagram. So we're gonna pass on me getting fired up today. All right, sound good? All right, Dan, appreciate you, brother. This has been another episode of Locked On UConn. Appreciate you guys, even some of you crazy psychos out there. Stay locked in. Stay connected. I wish our toughness meters on this team were a lot better, and I wish Dan thought that. I know Dan thinks that too. But as always, it's still go Huskies. Don't give up on the team yet. Season's not over.
Not yet.
Go Huskies.